Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
So we're going to start right from verse 15. And the good news is we are officially completed with the topic of dying. No more how to die, when to die, what to do before death, nothing. So this is why we reserved the next day for 15 onwards, because the topic is going to change slightly. So in the following verses, which we're about to embark on, between verse 15 and 22, Krishna is going to start off by speaking about two human goals. And we should already be familiar with the only two human goals that there actually are when you actually categorize in between so many options. Can anyone guess what these two goals are?
Moksha.
And what's moksha, and what's the other one?
Self-knowledge. Realize
Pursuits.
Worldly pursuits and self-knowledge. Yeah, so we completed the circle now. So hence, Krishna is going to define the first goal, called goal 1, and we will put goal 1 as Ishvara. So Ishvara means infinite. So this means one is only interested in seeking what is infinite, and also what is sacred. Not that the world is not sacred, it's just that what is the most sacred, what is the most worth pursuing, and what is the most attractive. That's what Krishna also means, that which is most attractive. This means nothing is more attractive than Ishvara. Therefore, such a person pursues the most attractive. The other name for this is Shreyaha. It's anything that is hard, very difficult, but it has delayed gratification. So the results are not immediate, however the results come much later. This is why Shreyaha is so hard to follow, the path of the good, because we want instant results. We say, what's the point of learning all this? I'm not getting any benefit, I'm still not happy. But remember, Shreyaha means that we have to pursue this for a long time until the results actually come. So this requires a great deal of faith and patience in what we are learning. Actually, it's the same in anything. Even in a job, you only get promoted much later at a higher position. It's not immediately. We all start off very normal. And the other name for this is Vaidika. Vaidika simply means anything that is in the literature of the Vedas. Now, when we think of the Vedas, don't instantly go onto the Hindu tradition. Vedas simply means knowledge. That means the knowledge, the essence of all knowledge. So therefore, such a person is interested in the scriptures which reveal and speak of the ultimate truth. And also in chapter 8, this is called Nishkama Upasana. What does the word Nishkama mean?
Without qualities.
Yeah, in other words, it has to be then searching for what is without qualities, Ishvara. So Nishkama means without worldly desires, but the only desire is on the fourth Purushartha, moksha. So therefore in the chapter 8 context, goal 1 equals Nishkama Upasana. What does Upasana mean? Meditation, contemplation, inquiry into. So what are we inquiring into? Nishkama. We're inquiring into what is infinite. And this Nishkama Upasana is supposed to produce Krama Mukti. Krama means sequential liberation. We discussed that it's a unique chapter because the person, having done many upasanas in life, then goes to Brahmaloka and gets classes there and gains the self-knowledge there. And goal 2 is the world. So goal 1 is Ishvara, goal 2 is the world. And this is anything that is finite. This is common sense because no matter how beautiful an experience is in the world with anyone about pertaining to anything, any kind of relationship, it has a time-bound effect. That means we get to enjoy it for a while, but then we lose it. Or even if, like, parents witness their children leaving their home, then they have to deal with that detaching from their child because they were together for so long. So anything that is finite is the world. And we also call this secular or preyaha. Preyaha means the path of the pleasant. As I said before, shreyaha is the path of the good, equals delayed gratification. Preyaha means instant gratification. This is why preyaha today is extremely popular, because we're just not willing to wait for results. So, for example, we say, let's go to some sightseeing tour. We all go because we know what we're going to get, instant gratification. So therefore, it all depends how strong your mind is. If mind's very strong, it will be attracted to shreyaha. If the mind is not so disciplined, if it's still extroverted, looking into the world, it's going to be tempted towards preyaha every time. And in chapter 8 context, we call this sakama upasana. So if the first one is nishkama upasana, this is sakama upasana, which means meditating, contemplating, thinking about the world, finite objects. Goal 1 and goal 2 is done. But here's a note about both of them. We usually think, as soon as we hear these two goals, we usually categorize them or compartmentalize them as God and world. Therefore, if I pursue God, then I put the world away. This is incorrect thinking, because only if you pursue the world, then God doesn't become obvious. But if we pursue God, then how do we pursue God if God is invisible? Through the world. In other words, we pursue God by understanding that all there is here is one. That is the one substance because of which this universe exists. And that substance is not other than the higher nature of Ishvara, Paraprakriti, and the lower nature, Aparaprakriti. In other words, spirit and matter in pure English. So therefore, pursuing goal 1 means simply I still get to thankfully be in this world with the people that I'm with the environment that I happen to be with, but I see the truth of it all. How? Through your vision, through your education. For example, you look at a world of a person and you go, you know, this person is not really what they appear to be. They're just a body-mind complex. They're a jiva and they have a certain vasana, samskara running, operating. And therefore, I can see them now as simply a program, like a software program, that is simply operating on the basis of what is stored in their samskaras, on their vasanas, on their subconscious mind. So therefore, we become more objective. Before, it was very subjective. No, I don't like them. But now, what is it that I don't like about them? So we can start to look at it objectively. So therefore, the relief comes there because we're no longer stuck in the very narrow-minded view about other people and the world. So, for example, think about anyone that you don't like right now. Don't tell me. And just ask, you know, what specifically do I not agree with? Because it's not, you get it? It's never the entire person. There's just one single value or belief that we don't necessarily agree with. But then we superimpose that across the entire person and we say, I don't like the person. So therefore, we need to, pursuing God, start seeing things very specifically as versus generalizing across the entire world. And Krishna also points out that for an intelligent person, that is, whose mind is subtle enough, they will naturally be attracted to goal 1 or goal 2? Goal 1, yeah, goal 1. And the one who is indiscriminative, that means they're not using their God-given intellect to assess what is here worthwhile and what is something that's just going to be fleeting. This too shall pass. If one's not discriminating that, then they will naturally want to taste over and over the experiences of everything other than Ishvara. And then, as a result of this, we have a wonderful process called rebirth. Now, I think I have a picture, and I want to show the picture of what do we mean by rebirth. Now, we can see the one who pursues goal number 2. What does this blue line represent? This blue connecting thread that connects all of them.
Consciousness?
This is what we call Jivatma. What is Jivatma? The one who has not ascertained the truth that I am not this BMI. So, in other words, the blue can be equated to ignorance. Because of this ignorance, which I have not ascertained in this life, nor this life, nor this life, nor this life, this blue Jivatma continues. In other words, the Jivatma is the traveling agent which takes on a new body when the BMI instrument goes old, and it needs a new body on the basis of what? On the basis of its past karma. On the basis of not ascertaining that I am other than this limited finite entity. So this is what all of us go through. Some of them read the books, some of them play sports, some of them enjoy being a president, some of them teachers, some of them are just someone who's helping around. But the whole point is they're all following what? Dharma, Artha, and Kama. The only way to sever this Jivatma is through moksha. We will quickly revise. Why is Ishvara the right goal? And we say there's 3 defects. Defects, the name Sanskrit is doshas. And these defects, the first one being that every pleasure in the world is together with pain. So there's a pain-pleasure mixture. Wherever there is pleasure, there is mixture. For example, giving birth, right? That is extremely like a new child's coming into life. It's like, yes, but as a result of that, such blessing, I also get to go through the pain as a woman of giving birth. And this pain is in 3 forms. The first one is the pain of acquisition. That means we gain something. There's a pain there. Because to gain something, what? I need to work hard to get something. Then there's a pain of preservation. Once I've worked hard to get something, then I have more pain to maintain it to sustain it. Otherwise, then things start to break down, things start to fall apart. And then the third pain is the pain of loss. So this pain, acquisition, preservation, and loss, they increase in intensity. So the pain of loss is much greater than the pain of acquisition, because the pain of loss entails what? A lot of attachment versus the process of acquiring something. So as we go forward, the pain is much greater. The defect 2 is nothing can ever give us total satisfaction. Total satisfaction means 100%. Because suppose that you get something really pleasant, suppose a rich man, and we think the rich man is happy, but the rich man is going, no, there is Bill Gates, there's someone much richer than I. So there's always something bigger and better than what we have. And on the basis of that, we then compare, and as a result of that, we reduce the value or what it means to enjoy what we have. So we can never enjoy what we have because there's always someone who's going to have apparently more. That's the second defect. And the third defect is it causes enslavement to attachment and dependence. So we become extremely dependent on this new object in our life. Which means when this object is not available, then we feel that distance. Now we want to have that object for our comfort. So yes, we have gained it, but having gained it now, when this object is away from us for however long, then the thoughts, agitations of I want it, I need it. And then if it's not there, then we get angry. So attachment leads to anger. We spoke about this in chapter 2. And anger leads to then defective intellect, which cannot contemplate about its life. So these are the 3 defects. And we can show these defects also using our mind maps. Okay. So Earth has many limitations. This means we get clothes like your bodies are like clothes. So we take new clothes. So after coming to Earth, which is in the Gita called the abode of sorrows, which we'll get to soon. We start abode of sorrows, okay. We get impermanence, that's the nature of the world. Everything we have here is impermanence. So we start off by crying. Anyone not cry when they come to Earth? Anyone happy when they're born? Okay, then infancy, we experience helplessness, right? We constantly need mama or papa. And we're dependent on there, so they better be good, otherwise we need to then put up with them. And then we go through childhood, when we're scolded and disciplined by the superiors. And then we get the adolescent, pangs of growing up, all of the minute details that comes with that, and competition and bullying and so on. And then we get rejected over and over again in youth. And then we grow up, finally, And then we have so many responsibilities, XYZ, in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and so on, right? Family, and there's always some pressure there. And then we grow old, and there is worry, separation, and disease. So therefore, both rich and poor all get sorrow equally. And thus, because it causes dependence, as we said, attachment, and leaves us craving for more. So now, we will answer, who seeks thus impermanence, having now ascertained the stages of life on earth? Whoever is tired of endlessly coming and going, like this person, that's like the machine, right? And having gone through the same experiences over and over again, and the person realizes that this whole life is basically about eating, sleeping, and enjoying. You know, they say chavarka. The path, you know, is just eat, drink, and get married. That's basically the path. So after seeing that life is nothing but this over and over again, and procreation, of course, the person then dies. And they see, what's the point of this? Like, is this it? Is this why I'm on earth? Just to eat, sleep, enjoy, and procreate. So this is a mature mind starting to inquire about the limitations of earth. As a result, they develop this passion. See this picture? I am neither concerned with winning or losing. I am neutral because I see things objectively. That's what this passion means. So therefore, they seek permanent happiness. Also, Krishna says, whoever is interested in only goal one is immune to these three defects, which would be obvious. So therefore, if you want immunity, you need to pursue goal one. And why? Because Bhagavan represents what is independent, what is full, and what is permanent security. Therefore, by identifying with Bhagavan, what are you identifying with? Fullness, permanent security, and limitlessness. That means total happiness. That's the logic, simple. If I associate with something that is limited, I can only get limited happiness, limited peace, limited knowledge. But if I associate with what is all knowledge, all happiness, all fullness, permanent security, then I also gain that. That's the reason why. And also as a result, the person, how does this transform into real life living? By associating with goal one, the answer is you become self-dependent. Think about this. Ask yourself, am I self-dependent? Or am I constantly in need of others for my happiness, joy, and peace? So any jnani's attribute, any common attribute of any jnani, number one is they're completely self-dependent. They don't even need their bodies. They don't even need to live nor die. Completely self-dependent. Why? Because I'm other than this world. So therefore, your self-dependence is your measure how far we're moving into this, how seriously you're taking this. Think about that. Am I self-dependent or am I depending on others for my happiness, for my joy, for my security? And also because God is never away from the one who pursues God. That's why they seek God. Tell me this, how far is the dreamer from the waker? Any distance? No. So what's the metaphor of this? The one who is dreaming is missing themselves because they're not paying attention on who's that one in whose presence I get to know about things. I get to know about objects. So what's the difference between the dreamer and the waker? The dreamer and the waker are one. But the waker becomes the dreamer if the waker puts focus on anything other than the waker. In other words, the waker puts focus on objects. That makes them a dreamer because they start wandering into objects. Remember as a little child we began wandering? We were like wandering. Like, what are you doing? I'm wandering. This is called being lost in our private worlds, dreaming our own worlds. So therefore, if we get lost, that is called dreaming. If we are alert, aware, conscious, that is called waking. So therefore, the waker and the dreamer are one. And the dreamer needs not go to special sacred places to discover the waker. They just have to do what? Change their focus from constant object fascination to self.
So in the dream state, by definition, does that mean that you're not able to focus on the self as a dreamer?
I use that just as a metaphor to give you a possible way of discerning that the dreamer is never away from the waker. I wasn't using it to now analyze the dream state or the waking state. Now, Krishna says, what is the advantage? This is verse 15, we're still on. What is the advantage of focusing on Ishvara? That is goal number one. And then Krishna is going to say, Mam upetya, that's the first word. In other words, if a person attains me, the advantage is punarjanma, na apnuvanti. In other words, he or she never comes to finitude or mortality again. So, if you attain Ishvara, if you attain me, that is Ishvara, then what happens? We never again gain one of those people on that picture. We never again gain mortality. We gain what? Infinity, immortality. So thus this person is free from dukkhalayam. In other words, the temple of sorrow. They are free from this temple of sorrow of earth. In other words, the abode of misery. See, he's not in putting down the world. He's not saying the world is just, misery and sorrow. He's not being negative. It's just to let us know that there is not much in the world of finite. So we can at least, start seeking for, because we need motivation. So this is this dukkhalayam, thus is the source of dissatisfaction. And the reason is because of ashashwatam. Because all experiences are fleeting, impermanent. Therefore, it causes dukkhalayam, suffering, temple of sorrow. Can you remember the happiest day of your life right now? If you could, don't tell me. Maybe it was a marriage day, maybe it was something that finally happened after a long time. Okay, remember that? Is that happiness still here every day, consistent? Is that still at its peak level as it was? See, this is what I mean by limitation. We would want to be in that state all the time, but no matter how hard we try with all the psychology and tools that we have, we just cannot sustain those states of constant happiness. But we all want to experience that and be in that state. So this is what we mean by a constant dukkhalayam, abode of misery. I had it, now I lost it. And also while living for this person who is free from dukkhalayam, there is little or no ups and downs in life. It simply means focus is not on what is constantly fleeting, on the body, on the mind, but it is on the self. Therefore, for them, there is no ups and downs. You see, there is only ups and downs if you give reality to this world, if you give reality to matter. And this ups and downs reduces in intensity if I just see it as subatomic particles. You want to use a string theory, you can also use that. Protons, neutrons, nuclei, all of that. You can just see it as just matter, because we give reality to matter on the basis of our perception. If you go inside, zoom in under a microscope, you just see subatomic particles everywhere. Therefore, for this reason, the person doesn't have ups and downs, because it is objective seeing. Having reached me, the wise men do not gain another birth, which is the abode of misery, and is finite. They have reached the ultimate success. Brahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartinorjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Now we have gone through some ups and downs of earth. Now you're going to say, what about heaven? Is that a safe option? We can always go to heaven, right? If the earth is called the abode of misery on the basis of everything being ashashwatam, that is impermanent, then is heaven something that we can look forward to? After all, we call anything wonderful in this world heavenly. It's heavenly. So most religions define heaven as eternal heaven. However, Krishna outright declares there is no such thing as eternal heaven. Eternal heaven is also finite. In fact, you can't even use the word eternal. In other words, looking for heaven is also goal 2, sakama, that is worldly. And in the Vedas, we have 6 heavens: Bhuvarloka, Swarloka, Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, and Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. We will talk about Brahmaloka. And the person alternates between these lokas depending on the mixture of their punya, papa, karma. A mixture of punya and papa together equals Bhuloka, earth, where we are now. And Swarloka is heaven, as some religions talk about, but in the Vedas we clearly have a picture. There's many more heavens, which are more subtler than the previous. So that's the difference. For example, what I mean by subtle. The subtler the jiva is, the greater the pleasures they can enjoy. Think about it this way. Because we are so gross, can we go through a wall? No. So this means we cannot enjoy the experience of going through a wall. Because we are so gross, we are bound to gravity. That means we cannot enjoy the experience of jumping up in the sky and being light like a feather or something. In other words, we miss out on a range of experiences. Why? Because of our grossness, because of our heaviness. If we were lighter, if we were more subtle, like spacey or airy, then we could enjoy so many greater experiences. So what I say earlier, every loka, the more you go up, becomes more subtle. Therefore, the jiva, on the basis of their punya karma, becomes more lighter, subtler. Therefore, they're able to experience finer pleasures, finer experiences. However, don't be tempted, because every heaven, as Krishna will say, in itself is also limited to time. In other words, what goes up like a rocket, once the punya karma expires, what happens? Then the rocket falls back down into the ocean. How is every loka limited? And then Krishna is going to say, lokaha punara vartinaha. The answer is, all 14 lokas exist within the boundaries of time and space. All 14. We saw the chart. We saw the 6. There's also, if you put them together, you get 14 in total. So this means that this is why scriptures talk about traveling, going to heaven. Did you notice that? You're going to go to heaven. Why go? Go means what? It is bound to another point in time, because it's not here now. Therefore, when I go, it will be there when I get there in what? In time. It will be there when I get there in space. So just by going implies it is also time bound, because what begins also has an ending. Therefore, any loka has no guaranteed security. So the question of going to heaven, sorry to disappoint. Actually, I'm not sorry. I'm glad to bring this up. No hope in heaven either. So this means appreciate earth as your number one spot, because you can do so many things here. Being number one moksha, that's actually the only reason we came to this planet. Now, question is, what is Brahmaloka? Now we're going to start discussing the highest heaven. What is this highest heaven? And then Krishna is going to say Brahma Bhuvanat. In other words, up to Brahmaloka, even Brahmaji is not permanent. Now, you're going to ask, what is Brahmaji? Who is Brahmaji? Brahmaji means creator of the universe. And I'll explain what Brahmaji is. And this creator also has to vacate his or her position. Just like the president. You get the spot of being the president, and it's a huge responsibility, isn't it? But the president also vacates their position when their term expires. So even creator has to vacate. I'm talking about the creator of the entire universe, has to vacate. I'm not talking about Ishvara, by the way. Brahmaji and Ishvara are not the same. And I did not say Brahman either. Brahmaji, creator, has to vacate his position. And to bring this into some context, because I know how the eyes are going now. What? Okay. You can even feel it, right? Some relevant context. Imagine your BMI is as... BMI means what? Body, mind, intellect. Is as though Brahmaji. So your body, mind, intellect is now Brahmaji. Or Brahmajini if you're a female. And it's a Brahmaji for all of the viruses and bacteria that live in it. Suppose just for bacteria, just to keep it simple. And so those bacteria are now having classes. They're called good bacteria. We don't want to put bad bacteria, okay? Those bacteria are now in your stomach having classes called Vedanta, and they're talking about Brahmaji. And all of the other bacteria who are listening are going, huh? Well, what are you talking about? In other words, because of you, all of the entire universe gets to exist. But we cannot know because the bacteria is far too small to understand the great entity because of whom the universe is sustained. So in the same way, we humans, when we hear about Brahmaji, we're like, huh? What are you talking about? It's the same concept. So the good bacteria in your stomach cannot know about you because for them, the entire universe, which they're using scientific instruments to assess as to how old it is called your stomach. But there's so much more than just the stomach. And this moreness is called Brahmaji. Thus, having said that everything is, that even Brahmaji thus has to vacate his position, which means that everything in the universe is ephemeral. It is transient. Nothing lasts. Even the creator himself doesn't last. And then Krishna says, whereas Mam upetya tu kaunteya. Arjuna, if you come to me, who is beyond time and space, then punarjanma na vidyate. There is no question of infinite becoming finite again. Hence, you gain permanent security. So, Krishna just said this. If you come to me, there is no question of you ever gaining another body, mind, intellect. Therefore, you shall gain infinite. That is what we're all looking for. Infinite security, infinite peace, infinite joy, infinite fullness. How? By coming to me, that is Ishvara. Arjuna, all the worlds where beings exist up to the world of Brahmaji are subject to return. However, having reached me, Arjuna, there is no rebirth. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyad brahmano viduhu ratrim yuga sahasrantam tehorat ravido janaha. This will be speaking about Brahmaji's life. Now, I said Ji, Brahmaji. The first note is Ji is not a Sanskrit word. It is a Hindi word. So the reason I'm using Ji is to distinguish it from Brahman. So you don't confuse Brahman, which is the formless highest reality, Satyam. And Sanskrit has two words, so we need to just take note of them. The first one is Brahma. There's no long A at the end, just Brahma. Brahma or Brahman, that is N at the end, they equate one and the same nirguna truth. That means nirguna satyam, the same one truth, which is beyond time and space. So, Brahma or Brahman, same thing, beyond time and space, the highest reality, nirguna chaitanya tattvam. And the second word is Brahma. Okay, long A at the end. Brahma means saguna tattvam. That means reality with the guna. Reality with features. So therefore, Brahma is subject to time also. Now, question is going to come up. What is the duration of Brahmaji's life? And Krishna is going to say, one calendar day for Brahmaji is 2000 Chatur Yuga. Chatur means 4. Yuga. Yuga means duration of time. And he's going to, like, what is 2000 Chatur Yuga? First of all, we need to discover what Yuga is. And there is 4 Yuga. There is first Kali Yuga, 2 Dvapara, 3 Treta, and 4 Satya or Krita. Krita means the golden age, and Satya means the truth. So the age of the truth. Now, Kali, we'll first do a calculation to get to 2000. Kali Yuga is 432,000 years. Okay? To get Dvapara, Dvapara means 2. So you just times this by 2 and you get 864,000. You times, to get Treta, Treta means 3. You times this by 3, you get, and calculator, 1296 0 yeah 00. And this one will be 1,728,000. So a little bit about these yugas. Kali Yuga is, this is the age that we're in now, is 1/4 virtue and 3/4 sin. So this is the age that we're living in now. So for every 100, so 75% of the time we're conducting sin and only 25 is virtue. But the point is, the age that we're in now is the time where Kali simply denotes a darkness or ignorance. So this means the age whereby there is greatest ignorance pertaining to our who we are or our dharma. Are the numbers right?
No, it's just the...
Okay. So in other words, Kali Yuga is when Tama guna is the greatest. In other words, throughout our life today, we see that the world is basically, in one word, selfish. In other words, I cannot see putting others first. It is about me. It becomes about the person. So therefore, Kali Yuga is highest selfishness, highest or least dharma, or least compassion, or least kindness. Dvapara is 2/4 virtue, because Dvapara means 2, and 2/4 sin. So this means there is a little bit less of, it's half-half. There is dharma, but also along with dharma is also some, behind the back tamasic behavior. So this is half-half. Treta is 3/4 virtue and 1/4 sin. So what happens in Treta Yuga is there is a little bit of contamination and tamas and rajas is starting to contaminate the sattva guna from the next age. So this is a very pure age, but the signs are starting to show of some immorality, of some lack of virtue, of some cheating, not being honest, not being completely kind. So the signs are showing there. And Satya Yuga is the age of perfection. That is 4/4 total virtue. This means the golden age, the age where there is only kindness, compassion, and understanding. The person in Kali Yuga, according to the scriptures, lives on average 100 years in Kali Yuga. And in Dvapara Yuga, the person on average lives 1,000 years. And in Satya Yuga, the person lives a lot longer. However, owing to the fact that they live so long, there is a lot less people, because the world could never put up with a person who lived 1 million years, digging up cobalt in Congo for the cell phones, right? In other words, that's why we live so short, but that's why the population is also much higher. So we add all this together, and we get 4,320,000. So we times this by 2,000 to get 1 day of Brahmaji. So we times this by 2,000 and we get, that's easy, you just go 864. So 8,640,000,000 years. So 8,640,000,000 years is 1 day for Brahmaji. And then you times this by 365 to get 1 year, because Brahmaji lives 100 years, and you get 3,156,300,000,000. You times this by 100, that's the year of Brahmaji. You just move the numbers forward, you get 315,360,000,000,000 years. Okay, so Brahmaji, creator, lives 315 trillion years. Now, I know what you're asking, that's a big number, but it's very easy to understand this. For example, you can either be a housefly or a drone ant, okay? Whichever you prefer. A drone ant lives 3 weeks. A housefly lives 4 weeks on average. Now imagine houseflies are having a conversation and they're talking about human beings. And it's like, you know, these humans, they live 100 years. They're like, wow, that's so much, I cannot imagine. But for us, it's nothing, it's like that. But for a housefly, jiva, it is so long. So in the same way for us, it's like, are you kidding me? 315 trillion years the creator lives. But for the creator, it's nothing. For us, it's a lot. So I'm bringing this up so that you can start to understand this microcosmic, macrocosmic relationship. Now,
So, just want to ask something. With the Kali Yuga, so we're talking about like Krishna's time, Rama time, and all these eras in India and China, Ming Dynasty, whatever. All this is part of this Kali Yuga, isn't it?
yeah.
So even then there was
Advaita is Krishna.
there was a quarter virtue and 3/4 sin. Even then, because I think a lot of idealism and things like that. Things were different then.
Yeah, Krishna came and the Vedas were written in the, I think, the Dvapara, because they were preparing us for the Kali Yuga. Also I'm glad you brought that up. Very important point about this. You will look at this depending on whether the mind's extroverted or introverted. If the mind's extroverted, instantly we'll take this data and go, okay, the world is going through these 4 times. But you can also look at this as a person going through these ages themselves. For example, we all start quite naughty when we're teenagers, okay, doing quite fancy things that are not so fancy, but they're generally adharmic, they're generally not considerate for the environment. And then through our life, we move closer towards the truth, considering we have discriminative minds. So these 4 ages also pertain to a person's individual journey. And one more point is, one calendar day is 8 billion years for Brahmaji. Now, when I say 1 calendar day, that means both night and day. So you have to divide this by 2 to get 1 day when Brahmaji is awake. Because Brahmaji also sleeps, that means the whole universe goes into dissolution, which we'll talk about. But Brahmaji is awake, you get 4,320,000,000 years. Now, if you look up in Google, very interesting, scientists will say that Earth is 4.5 billion years. Close. Based on the rock formation and the samples that they've extracted from Earth. So now you're going to say, well, okay, they're talking about Earth, but they're not talking about the universe, because they said the universe is 13.5 something billion years. Now, Vedic model is a little bit different. When you dream, what happens? When you go into a dream, the whole world, poof, appears instantly. The Earth is there, the universe is there, everything becomes available instantaneously. So I'm not saying now I'm going to refute the 13 billion or whether this is correct, but I'm just putting it so you can consider it. So I would clearly say that they're both valid, but it's very interesting that 4.3 billion is so close to what the scientists have ascertained through their rock formations of 4.5 billion years for the Earth. Now, Krishna is going to ask, who knows all of these details? And the answer is, ahoratra vidaha janaha. In other words, people who studied the scriptures, where all the 4 lokas are spoken of, they know such details. Okay, now, question is, what happens during the day and night of Brahmaji? And this will be covered in the next verse. Those people who know about the day and night know that a day of Brahmaji consists of 1,000 yugas and a night of Brahmaji measuring 1,000 yugas. That's just what I explained. Avyaktadvyaktayah sarvaha prabhavayantyahara game ratriya game praliyante tatraiva vyakta sanjnake. Okay, what happens during the day and night of Brahmaji? More investigation. So Krishna starts out by saying that it is very similar to the jiva's day and night. So because we cannot relate to such a big form, just come back to yourself as a person, because there is always a vyashti samashti connection. So therefore, to understand the big, you just understand the small, and therefore then you understand the big also. I'm going to talk about the jiva in 3 states of existence, in 3 states of experiences. The waking state jiva, when the day begins, immediately what happens? Time and space comes. And also, immediately begins all of our activities, all of our knowledge, our ignorance, our memories, our emotions, people that we know, responses, it all comes back instantly. Also comes back all our worries, all our tendencies, all our addictions, phobias, everything comes back intact. Which means that our private world is not destroyed while we are sleeping. How do we prove this? The fact that we continue from yesterday exactly where we left off. So this means that everything that we have in our causal body that makes us who we are remained simply in dormant condition. It did not get destroyed. So this means that the contents of our causal body, which is nothing but a totality of all our samskaras, vasanas, habits, all of that simply comes back, and it is not destroyed during what we could equate to a mini death. We literally go through a mini death, like a miniature death experience every night. Just total lose everything. No need to sustain our life. We just totally boom. Now we're here, then we're gone. So after coming from death, right, from deep sleep, then we have to still undergo or carry or bear the same things that were there yesterday. We don't escape them. We don't suddenly get them released. We're not suddenly free of them. We simply continue. And while you're listening, also compare this, what I'm describing, to Brahmaji. Now, a dream state jiva. When the jiva goes to sleep, then instantly the jiva throws out dream time and space, including dream objects, dream people, dream experiences. In other words, everything that we experience in a dream is made up of your own private subjective vasanas, samskaras, memories, and tendencies. So your whole dream world is only based on what? Your own life. Now remember, Brahmaji is the totality of all of the jivas, and you make up Brahmaji's totality. You're one of those that make up Brahmaji's totality. So on the microcosmic scale, we only have our own private world. But Brahmaji, his world is this, including us. Just like if you dream, in the dream you can even dream of other people dreaming. Have you ever had that experience? You were dreaming inside a dream and you woke up and you were still inside a dream. So this means that the alert waker, that means the person in the bed, is as though Brahmaji for the entire dream universe. Because the entire universe of the dream depends on whom? The person who is having the dream. So this person who is having the dream, we call them an alert waker, is as though Brahmaji for the entire dream space, time, and all of the objects in it. Now, deep sleep jiva. I'm going to use the word me intentionally here. My world is resolved into me for me. That means your private world is resolved into whom? You. Do you resolve it or does it get done for you? Do you like press a button in your dream to go into deep sleep? Huh?
No.
So who dictates when the deep sleep is going to start? Who does that if you don't do it? Ishvara. Okay, this is what we mean by laws and orders which we are all subject to. That means Ishvara chooses when we will wake up and when we will go to deep sleep and when we will dream. It's totally out of our control. And when we will then go out of our deep sleep back into a dream. Completely out of your control. When my world resolves into me, this means the entire world of time and space also goes into dissolution. The entire world of transactions, both pleasant and unpleasant emotions, everything in my life, no matter how much one is suffering or how happy they are, everything is resolved into myself. And it's done for me. This dissolution that we're speaking of is called Jiva's dissolution, microcosmic. This is called Layaha. Layaha means melting or dissolving or resoluting. In the same way, now comparing to Brahmaji, when Brahmaji goes to sleep, then he withholds the entire universe including every single jiva, for 1,000 Chatur Yugas. That means 4.32 billion years. And then, when Brahmaji wakes up, just like a jiva, then the entire world for 1,000 Chatur Yugas is as we know it now. So we are now in Brahmaji's one single day, one single daylight. What goes in and out means what? It was never created in the first place. See, if your world comes out, did you create that world or that world is simply continuation from yesterday? So in other words, nothing in this universe ever gets created. It simply continues from the last timeline, if you want to call it a timeline, from the last cause.
When Brahmaji goes into sleep,
Yeah.
is it a world? I mean, are we still existing?
Yeah, we're going to get there.
Okay, right. That's why I spoke.
Yeah, it's don't worry, we're going to cover it.
So the word, because I said there is no such thing as, you cannot create stuff. So therefore the word creation has to be taken very sensitively from now on, because as soon as we think creation, we instantly think creator. And to think creator means he created something at some point in time. This is what a mind of a human will do, because they cannot ascertain something that is limitless, that is infinite. So we impose the idea, I create something, therefore God also creates something at some point. But it doesn't work like that. This is a limitation of the human mind, and then it limits the entire creation.
So this is the old nut about the beginningless beginning, isn't it?
Beginningless beginning, yeah. So in other words, to ask the question, why did God create the world, is incorrect thinking. See, the question itself reveals the person's misunderstanding. The point is he didn't. The only way I can ask that question if I superimpose this idea that there is such thing as creation. But there is no creation, there is simply continuity from the beginningless beginning. We need to understand creation from now on as a manifestation of the world which was always existent in potential form. That means it was always there, but it was in potential. This manifestation, when it comes, it is also sustained by time. Time is also a subtle principle which sustains or makes transactions possible. Okay, could you stand on a ground if there was no time? No, so you need something subtle to sustain the objects of the world in order to make transactions possible. That's why we have time. Just like we have space. What's the point of space? To accommodate objects in the world. In the same way, those objects which are accommodated by this subtle space need a sustaining principle called time itself in order for them to have any legitimacy, any validity, so I can work with them. So both time and space come first, because after them, see, even to say after time and space is also a problem, comes all the objects which are accommodated by them. Now, next question is, what happens when Brahmaji goes to sleep? Or when Brahmaji's night comes? This will answer Rani's question. The answer is the whole universe goes into unmanifest condition. This is called avyakta avastha. Avastha means state. Avyakta means unmanifest. So the whole manifest world that we have right now goes into unmanifest condition. And all of the individuals are also resolved, praliyante, resolved into a state of unmanifest. Why all individuals? Because all individuals make up the total, and this total gets resolved. Now, does this mean that the matter in the universe gets destroyed when there's a state of unmanifest of the universe? The answer is nothing. Matter can never be created nor destroyed. In fact, scientists will even tell us this with law of conservation of energy. And whenever we call destruction of matter, what we're actually saying is conversion of matter from one state to another. In other words, from matter to energy. It is not being destroyed, it's just being converted. For example, boiling water inside a vessel, when it boils, it seems like it's gone. But the truth is, despite the vessel being empty, the water is actually not gone. Where's the water now? Vapor in the atmosphere. So they're just a conversion from solid to something that's very subtle. In the same way, conversion from matter into, if you want to use the word scientific word, energy. Because we actually in Vedanta use the word, this unmanifest, called prakriti or maya. That's the Vedantic word. Matter goes from itself into energy, into prakriti, into maya. In other words, the whole visible universe, at the time of the great dissolution of the whole universe, what happens? It goes from solid to, from visible to invisible, from matter to energy, matter to maya, matter to prakriti. Now, what happens when Brahmaji wakes up? Hello again. Yeah, reverse. You just reverse the process. So in other words, the potential energy, the prakriti, converts back to matter. Invisible converts to visible. Non-dual converts to dual. In your deep sleep, when everything is dissolved, what is there? Nothing. That's what we call non-duality. There is nothing to compare against. Therefore, there is only one self. There is only oneness. A conversion is from non-dual to back into the world of form and matter.
But then you come back to the same world, isn't it?
Exactly the same. That's why I use the word when you wake up, everything that you are continues. Everything continues right where it stopped. So there is no such thing as brand new creation, fresh birds, new types of trees. You know, it's all just like everyone's reset. There's control delete, or the hard drives have been formatted. There is no such thing as that. There's simply continuity. Just like when you wake up, you continue from yesterday. So let's just give you a metaphor. Prakriti, that is energy, goes into matter. So there's a conversion. For example, what is this prakriti that we said? Potential. So remember, when Brahmaji dissolves, everything goes back into potential. So for example, the potential for flying in the early 1900s, because at some point we didn't know how to put a machine or a tube in the sky. So what happened? Owing to an instrument called the Wright brothers, the aviation pioneers, they looked into a way, how can we put an object into the sky? So by their thought, what did they do? They instigated a possibility of how to fly. Therefore, they extracted out of the potential how to fly. In other words, the ability to fly was already there. And all we had to do was instigate it through a thought pertinent to something that correlates with flying, that is putting a machine into the sky. So therefore, we never ever create something new. We simply extract out of that is what is all knowledge, all power. That is called potential. So there's no such thing as innovator. You know those people who put their names, like I innovated AC, like Tesla, AC or DC, Thomas Edison. They just simply what? On the basis of their experimentation, their data, they were looking to solve a problem, and that thought instigated them to seek for a solution that was already in potential, and they extracted that and they put it on paper, and now they converted it into a mechanical process.
So they discovered it in line with Ishvara as
Yes.
the successful ones, whereas the ones who went before and had a go but it failed were missing being in line with Ishvara.
They couldn't fine-tune their thinking to that potential. They were off track because their thinking was not in line. So the thinking has to be exactly in line and has to represent the potential in order to extract the potential. Otherwise, I'll make errors, and then I'll make something similar but not exactly the same. And also what happens is when Brahmaji wakes up, instantly time comes back, obviously, to sustain the creation, to sustain the objects. Also, if you think about it, can you imagine time without matter? Can you imagine matter without time? In other words, wherever there's matter, there is time. Wherever there is time, there is matter. In other words, time gives possibility for matter to be perceived. If I don't have something that stays for a while, that means time, I cannot perceive it. But the object gives what? Legitimacy to time. Because I'm looking at an object, and by my looking, I can then say, by the fact that I'm looking at now, and now, see that duration? From that I can then give legitimacy to time. Therefore, time and matter are always interconnected. Now, finally, Krishna is going to conclude with, before moving to verse 19. Now, vyaktayaha sarvaha prabhavantya haragame. Out of the unmanifest, again, they become manifest. Okay, so this is a eternal cycle of manifest, unmanifest, manifest, unmanifest. Expansion, contraction, just like our heart expands, contracts. The universe is the same. It expands, that's why I said the universe is expanding, and then it contracts, what they call the singularity. And this singularity that the scientists call, I'm sure you've heard the word, all that means what? Brahmaji going to sleep. On the arrival of the day of Brahma, long A, all manifest beings emerge from the unmanifest. On the arrival of the night of Brahma, they merge into that itself called the unmanifest. Bhuta gramah sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratriyagameva shafpartha prabhavatya haragame. Now, we're going to cover some objections. If the universe goes from manifest to the unmanifest constantly, as we've established in verse 18, then what happens to all the jivas? This is even more Rani's answer now. What happens to us when this mass dissolution happens, this macrocosmic dissolution? Suppose that, we're still alive and the Jew and Brahmaji is now about to sleep. What will actually happen to us?
Dissolve back into the universal consciousness.
Yeah.
Bhagavan gives us a sample every day when we go to deep sleep. So the jiva continues the same destiny. That means even when there's an awakening, when the day comes, jiva simply continues the same destiny where they left off. Just like when you wake up, you continue the same destiny. So this means that the jiva, having gone into dissolution, taken all its ignorance with it, that means it's the body, mind, intellect, taken all its knowledge, its subjective ideas, its views about the life, that ignorance, that avidya, remains inactive in potential for 1,000 Chatur Yugas. That means 4.32 billion years. So this means you get a really long sleep, in summary. So just like when you wake up, you take everything with you. So it means the ignorance continues. This is why we have an eternal cycle of birth and death. Just think about animals who go into hibernation for a very long time. It's the same thing. Remember, all of the jivas are still ignorant. That's why they're just in a state of nothingness. And then the jiva again emerges as a jiva with all of their punya and papa karma. Again. This means all of their bad deeds and good deeds they have done, that simply continues. If they were a criminal, they will continue being a person who exercises damage or injury to the society. They're not going to suddenly wake up and be, oh, I'm so fresh, I'm now ready to pursue Ishvara, goal number 1. They will continue pursuing goal number 2. Just like when we wake up. How will the jiva remain during this pralayam? Pralayam means the macrocosmic dissolution.
Yeah, but in Kali Yuga we cycle 430,000 years, which means in Kali Yuga we're born and die and born and die and born and die, born and die, born and die.
Yeah, and we go to that into Dvapara and so on.
Yeah, but in the meantime we could have achieved samsara.
Yeah, all of them are samsara.
So if we get out of the cycle,
then
we don't go through all this.
Then there's no one to even ask the question, because there's no one born on earth to be asking this question. So therefore, all of these 4 states, all 4 ages, they're all samsara still, because they're all objects, except this is a much more pleasant samsara to be in, because everyone's loving each other, right? Everyone's kind, compassionate, and loving. However, this samsara is also pleasant, but it presents a lot more challenges in our life, a lot more opportunities for pain. So we all go through these eternally, and we only stop them upon moksha. That's the only way to end this cycle of ages.
So isn't Kali Yuga by definition a better opportunity for self-knowledge?
That's an excellent point, actually, because suppose you're in Satya Yuga, okay? What are you doing? You're just loving everyone. You're enjoying everyone. You're appreciating the Lord, right? As what? Form, as, doing your upasanas, as... In other words, only what? When things are not right, when we start to suffer, then we look for a way out. That's the advantage.
But even the satya, like you're enjoying it, enjoyment also can become boring, frustration.
Yeah, exactly. And plus they live a lot longer. And they live a lot longer, right?
So can you enjoy?
Yeah, exactly, right?
So I'm good.
So be so glad that it's Kali Yuga, because see, we don't look for chance to improve when things are going well in our lives. We only look for ways out or to improve when something goes wrong. And Kali Yuga is a wonderful opportunity for that. And how do we know that the sense of I, the wrong identification with the body-mind, how do we know that all of your knowledge, all of our ignorance, our tendencies, our worries and concerns, how do we know that all of that remains during pralayam? Yeah, we simply continue our past thread. A chain gets simply continued. As again, we wake up, we simply continue. It is the same thing on the macrocosmic. So therefore, everything was indeed in potential. So this means that even if all of the scriptures in the world right now got burnt, suppose all of the Upanishads got burnt, every single religious text got burnt, that completely doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Because the fact is, the jiva still has knowledge. See, right now there are jivas who are not born. And they have what? Gone through the scriptures, but they're not born. So suppose all of the scriptures get taken out of the world, and a jiva gets born who has sharpened their mind in the past life according to the thinking of the scriptures. What are they going to start doing? They're going to start writing and thinking in line with the Upanishads. And therefore, the Vedas gets created all over again. This is why we don't have to worry about knowledge going out of existence. It can't. Because the jiva is still present. And the jiva, even if the jiva is not born, they will be born at some point in time. to rewrite the scriptures all over again. See, when you start thinking in line with the truth, what happens? We are inspired to write books about it. And then others confirm that. And then we have discussions. And then we make some corrections. And then we create a new text again. Okay, so in summary, the question was, how will the jiva remain during this macrocosmic dissolution when there is no universe at all? The answer is in the same way that we described with the jiva, who is having their deep sleep. In that same way, during pralayam, the macrocosmic dissolution, the jivas go into potential condition. That means all the jivas are there, they're just in potential. Now Krishna says, Bhuta gramaha sa eva yam bhutva. Now, more interesting, it gets. The same multitude or group of jivas go to dormant condition and then again come back. And this is an eternal process. Now, we just said the word same. That's the key word. Same group, same multitude of jivas. So this means right now that every single one of us here has met each other eternal amount of times. Because it says same group, same multitude of jivas. There is no such thing as I'm meeting this soul for the first time. You have already met everyone eternal amount of times. And thus we are here again. Why? Because in these 4 ages that we've been through, from beginningless beginning, we have not severed that blue cord by attaining moksha. Therefore, we have met each other again. The same group or the same set of jivas are coming back. So this means that no new fresh jivas are ever created. It is impossible to create a new jiva. There is only everything that remains where? In potential. So you can't say a new jiva is created. It is only created on the basis of potential going from unmanifest to manifest. But it is not actually cobbled up all over again. So we'll give you a logic for this, yeah?
I was just going to say, so does that explain the difference in the quantity of numbers between Satya and Kali, where it's not the quantity, it's the frequency of the actual movement that actually accounts for the fact that all the jivas are always there? But even though the numbers in terms of physical numbers are different.
You're talking about the population and
population of the Satya.
Okay, I'll get to that topic now. Yeah, it's always in line. Good. So again, no new fresh jivas are ever created, which means what? The same quantity of jivas are circulated. We're constantly going around in circulation. Hello again, eternal amount of time.
You said there is a finite number of jivas.
different body, different face.
Infinite.
Because the universe is infinite itself. All knowledge, all power expresses itself as infinity. So we'll convert it into an objection. We just said no new jivas are ever created. So then how do we explain population growth? Right? Valid question. Okay. First need to understand, jiva is not, the word jiva, J long I-V-A, is not limited to a human being, to a manusya. It also includes every single insect, every single plant, every single animal. Because they also have subtle bodies. Yes, plants also have subtle bodies. You take a Venus flytrap, right, and you can see how it responds on the basis of a fly coming 3 or 4 times and then it closes. So it still reacts based on some kind of intelligence. So all of these insects, flies, animals in all 14 lokas, not just Earth, but all 14 worlds in the entire universe constitute jivas. So that's what we're talking about, infinite. Also, Swami Chinmaya used to say something very nice. He says that, to give you an idea, at some point in time, there were a lot of trees. It was greenery everywhere. And there were wild animals. And the animals loved enjoying themselves amidst their home called the forest. And then man came along. And then he started cutting down the tree jivas, started destroying the insect jivas, started removing the animal jivas. So these animals and plants had nowhere to go. So what did they figure out? Oh, okay, so if man is the last man standing, so why don't we just come back as a human jiva? So, did you notice that the less trees and animals that we have on earth, the bigger the population? In other words, the point is, it is possible to go from one, as the Vedas clearly describe, from one form to another constantly. So the less animals, the more humans. The less trees, the more humans. And also what happens is, based on the 14 lokas, based on the subtlety that allows our punya, papa, karma to operate, then the jivas shift from one loka to the other, upon death, of course. That means the jiva gets reborn in a different world. For example, the dinosaurs were no longer conducive for Earth. Earth wanted a new fresh species, so then dinosaurs had to simply go away to give way to something that's much smaller. So therefore the dinosaur jiva went away. And then giving way to human jiva, to other nicer animal jivas.
It's funny because I observed a plant over a period of several weeks, one of those wandering plants, and you could sense that plant, the way it was actually moving over that period of time. It was a climbing plant, and it could see it was actually, there was nothing in the space, and then there was an edge of a chair which didn't move. And over a period of about 10 days, you could see the end of this plant actually sensing this point, and it must have had the desire to try and get over it, but with the sun and the rain and the wind, it kept having likes and dislikes and moving around, and eventually it got to that thing and started climbing up and moving it. So it was a very
the only thing is, a
observation.
plant does not have karana sharira, so you cannot have likes and dislikes or vasanas.
But there were things that it was actually going away from, as well as things.
Yeah, now that's the response based on a simple program into its subtle body, into its sukshma sharira. Yeah, but it doesn't have vasanas or karma. It's just there to exhaust itself.
In science, we call biodiversity.
Huh?
In science,
Yeah.
they call it biodiversity. This much of people, this much of animals, this much of creatures.
Right.
That should be.
Yeah.
So here it is growth, here is no growth. Some problem is.
Yeah.
That subject is called biodiversity.
Did you also notice those plants that you just put a wire, like grapes, right around?
They know where the fruit is.
Yeah, and also the Venus flytrap, amazing plant. So for example, they know they can only close so many times. So what they do is they have inbuilt receptors to detect movements, and you have to touch it about 5 or 6 times before it closes. Because if one little speck falls, it's going to waste its life. So it actually waits 6 times for someone to touch it, and then it closes. This is all intelligence built in. That means it requires a subtle body. Now I'll give you logic why jivas can never be created, because we said that no new jivas can ever be born. So give us some graspable data, some graspable logic behind it. The jiva is fashioned how? Based on causal body, karana sharira, which consists of all of your punya, papa karma, all your sanchita karma, all your past karma. So if no past karma is present, if no past vasanas are present, then the question is, on the basis of what is a new jiva going to be fashioned out of? Okay, so again, a new jiva is never created. Why? Because to create a fresh new jiva, you require a causal body. But the jiva hasn't done anything before. So therefore, it has no causal body. Therefore, you cannot have a fresh jiva. Because to have a fresh jiva equals, I need a causal body, which includes all of my vasanas and samskaras from previous life. So in other words, the jiva is not fashioned according to Ishvara's wish to populate the world. The jiva is born on the basis of what? Causal body. What is causal body? Your tendencies, raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes. So based on the likes and dislikes, did you ever notice when even 2 babies can get born and they're twins, why does one like this and one like that? What makes it different? Karma. That means their causal body makes them act according to their behavior is an expression of their causal body. Therefore, two entirely different individuals grow up in the same environment, same opportunity, but this one likes, suppose, playing with object X, this one likes object Y. Why? Because of something which caused them to be born, which is their karana sharira. Now, another objection is going to arise. We just said no new jivas can ever be created. Why? Because there's no causal body. Then, when was the first jiva created? Because it's pretty obvious we are jivas. We are created, right? We're here. We're jivas, body-mind complexes. But we just said that no new jivas were ever created, which contradicts our experience. We are living as jivas, as a body-mind complex. So how do you resolve this contradiction? Are you getting the objection here? See, your jiva implies what? Past karma, past vasana, past samskara. But we just said no new jivas are ever created because to create a new jiva, you need past karma, past vasanas, past samskaras. So contradiction right there. The answer is the jiva was never created in the first place. All jivas are anadi, eternal. See, again, we have reached the limitation of the mind that always tries to put things in a linear fashion, always tries to put a beginning. A mind that starts at some point as a result of its birth is going to superimpose that same idea onto creation. At some point, creation was born. This concept is a limitation of the mind. Therefore, all jivas are eternal. So just to give you some graspable idea what it means to say eternal, tell me this. Did up come first or down come first?
Simultaneous.
Well, up has to go down,
So-
down has to go up.
Which came first, up or down?
Cyclic process.
Neither.
Neither.
Okay.
You see, so why did I ask this question? I asked this question to exhibit the ignorance of the person. For example, I can only ask that question if I am taking relativity to be real. For example, if I am standing on the ground, from the aspect of the ground, if I look up, then what comes first? Up. From the aspect of the aeroplane, if I look down, then what comes first? Down. So therefore, the question came out of what? My own ignorance. Therefore, I pose the question, what comes first? In the same way, to pose when did the first jiva come exposes the lack of knowledge of the fact that you cannot ask that question, and if you do, you're then referring to something that is relative to something else. So therefore, I silently revealed my ignorance by asking you the question. In the same, huh?
Chicken and egg.
It's
Which
sick.
comes first?
I know, it's difficult. I didn't want to ask that because they want to ask that question, right? It's old. So, summary, then we'll close. Number one, all jivas are anadi, eternal. Every one of us here is from the beginningless, even, I'll remove the word from, beginningless beginning. Now, this beginning will end upon moksha. And eternal means what? Because we said all jivas are eternal. Eternal simply means there is no first. For example, can you ask, when did the first wave in the ocean come? When did the first wave in the ocean come? You see the error in thinking? So in other words, I can't ask that because to ask that question, I made an error in my logic. And then on the basis of the error, I'm then asking a wrong question. And we also said that no new jivas are ever created. Because to say something that is newly created, you know what we've just done? We limited Sat Chit Ananda, Ananda means limitless, into a limitation. Because to say newly created means that limitless excludes the possibility for something new to arise. In other words, limitless simply means everything already is in potential. It's not here now, but it is when it is in manifest. So again, we cannot ever create something new because to create something new implies I've now limited limitlessness by excluding what it didn't accommodate. And now on the basis of it being included, it suddenly, enjoys even greater limitlessness plus that which is created. So therefore, everything already is in potential. That's what limitless or eternal or infinity means. He's going to say, despite having choice to get in and get out of this cyclic merry-go-round, I use the word merry-go-round, the jiva finds him or herself helpless to do so. We're in a merry-go-round and we know that we want to get out, but we can't get out. He says the word avashaha. In other words, I find myself helplessly here on earth in this merry-go-round, whether I like it or not. In these 4 yugas, whether I like it or not. Is that our experience? Like right now, we are here, and I can't help it, right? So suppose you're suffering, you're still here, and you can't help it. Suppose like you're having the greatest moment of your life, and it's a really nice life. The fact is, we're still here, and we can't help it. So in the same way, jiva finds oneself on earth in this merry-go-round, whether they desire to be here or not. They cannot come out because of the samsara, because it is so attractive to, and it's so, there's always one point worthwhile to stay. Everything in the world is not good, but there's one thing in my life that is worth staying. And because of that one single thing, it could be even a thought, even a color, or even the sun. I like to be in the sun. One single object makes me stay in the merry-go-round for eternal cycles going through these 4 yugas. And thus that picture becomes very real that we represented. For this reason, jiva is reborn all over again because they don't have the strength or the capacity to say, no, my journey here is only for moksha. Instead, the jiva says, yeah, I want moksha, but I also want something else. It doesn't work like that. In other words, mortality cannot be escaped because the person chooses to pursue time-bound objects. Therefore, we need to switch focus from time-bound objects, goal number 2, to goal number 1, to come out of this merry-go-round and thus end this cycle of rebirth. On the arrival of the night of Brahmaji, that very same multitude, us that is, of beings emerges. Having emerged again and again, on the arrival of the day of Brahmaji, it emerges again helplessly. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.